Okay, let's go ahead and get started a little bit here underway with episode 5 of Film Student School. I am your host, David Ortega, also known as Dark Spider David here on the Twitchiverse? I was about to say Twitterverse, but I know that wouldn't be accurate. Alright, so now that I got some sustenance, which explains why I'm running a little late, normally Film Student School is every Thursday at 7:30 p.m. here on the Twitch channel. If you're watching this on Twitch or if you're watching this on YouTube, go over to my Twitch channel and follow, and that way you'll know exactly when I go live, so you guys can interact with me in real time. Otherwise, get set because we're about to talk about a very controversial and very complex and very twisted subject when it comes to my relation to film school as a whole. Me. Basically living with myself because episode 5, it's a very curious. I honestly don't even know why I kind of scheduled and categorized episode 5 as is, but it's what I kind of put on my list of episodes to do, on my things to kind of break down. So I figured, you know what, screw it. Since it is about me, I figured, we'll go with a little bit more of a casual attire as opposed to the formal stuff that I normally wear. But I believe next week, if I'm up for it, I'll bring back the tie and kind of make things a bit more on the legit side. So otherwise, Six Sabers, how's it going? Welcome to the stream. So episode 5, we're going to bring it back to the more narcissistic side of this podcast, which is going to be all around me. But again, similar to that first episode where it was more of the introductory phase where I talked about myself, there was one little facet in that intro stage of that first episode that I knew what needed to be a part of its own stream. Well, it needed to be part of its own episode when the time came about, which I believe, I really want to say it's actually this time, because I just feel like I can go on for a little too long when it comes to this subject, which is how do I perceive film and how my perception of film changed over time and how that not only influenced me to take the leap to go to film school, but also to pretty much cause I don't want to say an echo chamber, but just like a kind of reverberation within my close social group of friends, peers, and family, saying, "Hey, this is the thing that you want to do. You should probably go to the film school, to the school for it," which is in this case film school. And exactly how that, I want this to be not just for this episode, but for the various episodes that I've done and the future ones that I'm hoping to do. I want it all to at least be, be told in a narcissistic point of view where it's like, oh, hey, this is my experience, this is how I went through it, but I'm hoping that maybe somehow, some way, this is going to resonate with anybody who might be watching this on YouTube or watching this on playback on Twitch or might be watching this unfolded live on Twitch. Before I carry on through, like I said, I stream Film Student School every Thursday nights at 7:30. The only reason why today was a little late, as I was saying at the beginning before I went off at a tangent, was because I simply just had to eat. And prior to coming home to eat, I actually had to run. I had to make a quick Walmart run at my local Walmart to pretty much gather supplies and stuff like that. And because, of course, with what's going on right now and the limitations for it, it's, pertinent that we, get supplies and groceries and things like that in a very orderly fashion. And sometimes that orderly fashion can also take up a little bit of time. So I know I was there for a good minute, but I'm not saying that in a complaintive sort of way, only because it gave me a reason to watch listen to some YouTube videos, some things that I've been kind of behind when it comes to like podcasts, videos, some of the things that help me influence stuff like my perspective in film like that, because there's definitely facets of that in my life, whether it comes to the content that I consume, videos, tutorials, but of course on the audio side of things, podcasts are a huge part of what makes up this kind of mindset that I'm in, but we'll talk about that in due time. Six Sabers in the chat asks, how is Walmart? Well, I don't know. I mean, it's looking pretty terrible because I went in there for pickup. In fact, I didn't even go in the store. I went to a parking lot section on the side of the store that's designated for pickup, as it should be, Went there, checked in on my phone, and that's when the true wait started. That I was like, okay, this is gonna take a while. But again, it gave me a reason to watch those videos. And finally, I heard something kind of rumbling like a cart, and I saw the girl approach from behind. That's what he might want to say. And I started to notice her approaching my window. That's when I rolled down my window, and she's like, what's the name? David. Okay, got your order right here. Do you want it in the back seat or in the trunk? And I'm like, the trunk is fine, because I actually did order quite a bit of stuff, including a case of water. Popped the trunk, popped it in, and I was out of there. So only waiting for the stuff to come in was the only tough part. But otherwise, that was it. It was clean and easy. But from what I can tell, as I was driving in and out of the parking lot, I saw a shit ton of people in bunches walking in, about half, if not maybe even more than half of them, not wearing masks or gloves or anything. None of them. And I'm like, yep. So from now on, Walmart, just pick up. I'm not going in there. Fuck that place. And then Target, either pick up, or I might just be willing to make the dash inside, because that's literally the only one of these like grocery type places that I've actually been inside, and I felt like it was pleasant considering the situation has been Target. Surprise, surprise. So there you go. Today I got my hair cut, but we were required to wear a mask. So you can actually go in there? Huh. That's the thing, is that I think some of my local places can have opened up for haircuts, but I still don't want to go. I voluntarily, here from my own volition, I just don't want to go. Like I said, I think maybe I'll just grow it out a little longer, and it'll be like a long, glorious locks. And then once it starts to get really, really tough, and I mean tough to maintain, then maybe that's when I'll finally cut it. Tomorrow I'm going to get $20, and I currently have $60. Hello, new game. Walmart went back to $113 for the FF7 Remake Deluxe, but I'm going to get my copy in Best Buy. Okay, good. Yeah, because, come on, Walmart, they're gypping you, man. That ain't right. Like I said, I really hope that, and it's jipping because it's in store. If it was online, then okay, that's probably a third-party seller who was trying to sell some copies, and then finally when people started to get, attentive to that sale, they, like, spiked up the price. At least it would make sense. It's fucked up, but it would make sense. But if it's in store, yeah, like I said, man, you gotta hit up that manager. If that manager didn't do anything, then, yeah, take your business elsewhere, because they're not gonna budge. Don't even tell them that you're gonna take your business anywhere. Just, act upon it. Alrighty. So that explains the slight little tardiness, because I had to get that going, and also we got held up at work. I was supposed to be off at 6, but I didn't get off until like 6:20. I was 20 minutes over because we were busy. Busy taking care of the people that probably should have been there earlier. But I digress. Oh my god. Anyways, so yeah, that before I get into a more worse for wear mood. So that happened. Then I had to go on that Walmart run. Then finally I got to eating, and I didn't want to like rush eating, because every time I try to eat fast, I actually end up making myself feel a little sick, because it's all bunched up right here, and I can't really enjoy my food properly. And even that, I still feel like I did it a little bit. So it took my time, and then now that's why I'm finally here. So apologies for the slight 30-minute delay on today's episode, but it kind of is what it is. I went inside Walmart today. It was also 113. Yeah, you told me that it was like still 113 on the inside. That doesn't make any sense to me. It's weird. So I'm gonna get Best Buy for my copy. Nice. The flat, Best Buy should have it at the flat $79.99. If they have it, still have it in stock, go for it, man. So episode 5, as the title indicates, everyone's my critic. Not, because usually people say everyone's a critic when people get a little bit too critical. But what if you're the person who's considered overly critical? That's often what I get nowadays when I see a movie with someone. I would probably say the biggest person to tell me of how critical I can be right now with certain things, not just movies, but with like television shows or even music to an extent, is of course my girlfriend, because naturally she's the one that is with me the most, from both a physical and just a social kind of way. So obviously, she's the one within the past 5 years, as long as we've been together, which is about 5 years, she's the one that I've seen the most movies with, I've watched the most shows with, I've had the most content experience with. With sons, as they say, sons, one division of the culture in my life that I love, which is video games. Video games is probably the most separated that we are. She still likes to play her games. In fact, she frustrates me because I let her borrow, as Snicks, you might know, I let her borrow my Switch Lite. Still hasn't given it back to me. Because I literally have given her an ultimatum multiple times. Give me back the Switch Lite or start playing it. She's like, no, I don't want it. I'm going to play it. Okay, then start playing it. No, because if I start playing it, I'm never going to stop because she really loves reading. But she properly feels that if she starts playing the Switch, she's going to give up on her reading, which is her first love, and start playing Pokemon Sword and Pokemon Let's Go Eevee. And I even let her borrow Ni no Kuni on there, and I even loaded up a couple of games like the Lego Harry Potter game on the Switch Lite because she loves Harry Potter and she loves the Lego games. She thinks they're really cute. So she does her own fair share of gaming. She's just not as, I don't even want to say hardcore, but as passionate as I am, where I got these stacks right over here with games. Her family owns a console. She personally does not own a console. She doesn't have boxes racked up like I do here. So that's the only, side of culture that we're kind of a little bit separated on, even though we still from time to time like to, really talk about the things going on in gaming, but movies and TV shows are really where it's at. And it's when we're watching movies and TV shows that she finds me at my most critical. And she sometimes wonders where I kind of got all that, harsh criticism for. And that's something that's not specifically just exclusive to me. I think it's virtually anybody who, I think, this might sound as a very duh sort of thing, like it's a very obvious thing to say, but I think anyone who is a creative of some kind doesn't just have to be film. Anybody who's passionate about anything has to be critical of that thing because that's where their passion lies. It's just an instinct. It's just built into our brain as like a chromosome pattern, so to speak. I know that sounds like gibberish, but basically, like, we just cannot help it. Is what I'm trying to say, is that there's some kind of scientific and spiritual programming deep inside of us that just makes us go, we have to be critical about the things that we love. Often I would try to use that argument when I criticize her, and it doesn't work. But I digress. So, when it comes to film, for me specifically, obviously I'm going to be the most critical about film because that's where my passion lies, and that's where I would love to exfoliate my career. A musician, a rapper, guitar player, a lead singer, the lead singer's gonna be critical about people singing or about his own singing. The rapper's gonna be critical about his rhymes, or someone else's rhymes, the most than the country singer will be, because that's what they're passionate about. That's what they love. So, with that out of the way, which is, like I said, the most exemplary, but at the same time the most obvious response to why it is that someone like me is really critical of film. Now, how, is that a wrong thing? Do I sometimes wish that I was different and not very critical so that I can maybe enjoy some of these films that my girlfriend loves, or TV shows that my girlfriend loves, or that the casual audience is able to laugh at while I sit there silently in the movie theater? You can bet your sweet ass. There's so many instances where I wish I could let that critical side of me just fall down, just drop its guard, and I can enjoy the whatever movie it is for what it is, but it's just built into my programming, it's built into my DNA, and I cannot just help it. But just know that if you're watching this by some happenstance and you find yourself in that same position where you wish you can, like I said, drop that guard and just not be so critical, and again, not exclusive just to film. I know that this is called Film Student School, but if there's another side of your life that you're really passionate about, like, music, television, writing, poetry, hell, whatever the hell it is, it's okay to be critical. Just don't be douchey. That's the the big takeaway from this. The big piece of advice I can maybe pass on that's been passed on to me is just to not, there's a difference between being critical of something and then being an asshole about certain things in life, or just being an asshole, period. And yeah, I always try to, and of course that is generally something that I did have to learn from experience. It's not the critical side of things, but just how to make it conductive to, especially when I would probably say the only person you're allowed to be an asshole to when it comes to that critical reception and to is you, because you ultimately have the control of your feelings. When it comes to other people's work, of course it's a case by case basis, because some people don't care if they're referred to as an asshole. They don't have, that conscious kind of alert saying, "Oh, this person got hurt by what I said." I do, to an extent. It really depends. Again, it depends on the person. Like I have ways to read people when someone is just not getting the message versus someone who you can tell they just need that extra little critical nudge, and then they'll be on the merry path. And I personally feel like I have a good radar about that. I don't think I have the best radar, but a pretty decent one. So I know when to use my deadpanness for humor, as against to or when to use it for humor or when to use it for critical response. And only with the people that are generally, like I said, stubborn, terrible, not willing to listen to direction, which is something that if you're going to be in the film industry, regardless of which position you are, director, producer, you have to listen to that criticism, because that's the only real way you're going to grow. That's another thing that I learned over time. That's the only real way you're going to grow. And that's also another thing that kind of, that kind of also fed into just my personality over the years, because I wanted to move away. Obviously you want to move away from your inferior self. That didn't just apply to film with me. It also applied to how I approached relationships, to how I approached making friends. I mean, it's sadly one of the reasons as to why I'm not up to my head with friends when it comes to like my social circle. So it's because I would be critical of those people. And again, I don't want to get into politics. And when I say politics, I don't mean actual politics. I just mean in terms of like what's socially normal now, what's socially allowed. Because obviously, what is allowed and what isn't, what is funny and what isn't, what is cool and what isn't, is very different now than it was in the 1950s. And we're all just learning to adapt and catch up. As Dr. Alan Grant in Jurassic Park, we're all just trying to catch up. And I want to say that maybe my mindset when it comes to giving criticism or trying to build someone up to make sure that they're better or whatever is a little antiquated by comparison, because often I get people in my life, different people coming to me saying, "Hey, I'm trying to help this person," but they're not willing to help themselves. And sadly now, 13, 14-year-old me would probably have said, keep talking to them. But when I tried to talk to my own person that I couldn't help and it wasn't working, like I said, I started to look at the parts of my life when it comes to talking to people, talking to friends, to family, whatever, and splashing on that filmmaking critical response type of coat of paint, so to speak. And in that, like I said, I lost friends, sure enough. I lost acquaintances. There were certain people that promised to stay in my life, and literally one day they just stopped talking to me on Facebook. They really, really did. They said that they were going to get through some things, and they just dropped like a hat. And I like the dumbass that I am, I kept messaging them. I would space out my messages, from like a week to even a month to a couple months, and they never got back to me. And I was like, all right. And that's a hard lesson that I had to learn. And then that's where I started to start telling people, like, okay, those people that don't want to help themselves, that are not willing to listen to you, they have to hit rock bottom. They're going to have to. That's the only way. And I've been criticized as being very cold, very bastardly saying that. But, that, like I said, that's when you hit rock bottom, there's nowhere to go but up. And that's where that form of criticism, that form of mindset was rooted in how what I've been told about the film industry, about how cut and dry it can be, how dog-eat-dog it can be so bad that you need to expect the worst almost every single time. I remember actually recently Brad Pitt, when he won the Oscar for Best Supporting Actor, I think he was talking about Tarantino himself. I think it was Tarantino himself who said uh, or he was referring to someone who told him that you need to expect the worst when it comes to the film industry, going on set every day or going to a meeting or something like that. Expect the worst. Expect the absolute worst every time. But hope for the best every time. And that's a really good quote. That's a really good thing to kind of live by. And so far, that's kind of where I've been for the past 6 or 7 years. Even prior to meeting my girlfriend or whatever, like I said, that's where I started to get into my transitional point where I was starting to tell people that they have to hit rock bottom and learn, where I started to be more blunt, where over time, that sugarcoating that I would often put on things when I was in my teen years, in my high school days, and even in my community college days, started to just melt away. And I can confidently say that whoever I am right now was definitely not who I was 10 years ago. However, I feel confident saying that it was for the better, because back then, when I was being so nice, I was also suffering with some personal demons when it came to like depression and not being happy with myself, so on and so forth. And I definitely took that transformation and kind of applied it to how I view film, which is to make sure that this stuff that I'm being super critical of, with the exception of the one film or two that I just genuinely hate, because that, especially when you get to the third one in that series, Alvin and the Chipmunks, the squeakquel. Yeah, when it comes to those franchises and they make that second or third or God for fucking bid that fourth film, and that they're not changing despite the criticism because they know that they're making that money, that's where, just like with people, I'll start to be an asshole and be like, you know what, screw that movie. I hate that movie. Fuck whoever directed it. Fuck whoever wrote it. Yeah, whoever greenlit this. You can tell that they're being just completely close-minded. And then you also have a good way of measuring when someone's genuinely trying and they just didn't hit the mark, or when something is pretty good and it just needs a little bit of polished up work in their follow-up pieces of film, whether it be from a writing standpoint or directing standpoint. And then, of course, you got your films that are great. But, of course, one thing that I learned while critiquing film, which originated... I guess we should go ahead and just start talking about the origins of my film critique when I did start to get that flavor for talking about film, because that passion in me was starting to spark up in relation to film. I mentioned that it was around being 14, 15 years old is when I started to kind of develop that love for film, where I was watching more of those DVDs extras as opposed to the actual film when I got the movie physically on disc. As I mentioned in episode 1, well, lo and behold, that was 2005, 2006. Then we get 2007, and then I find out about this wonderful website called YouTube. And it was around that time that we had a, little unknown film called Spider-Man 3 debuting. And I finally got myself a camera, and I recorded myself talking about the action figures for Spider-Man 3. And along with that camera, I also made some start motion films on Spider-Man 3, because I found out what the process can be kind of tailored to that mini DV camera about stop motion animation. It wasn't as refined as some of those stop motion films and bits, but there was just something so intriguing about that method, about taking all these little frames, montage them together, playing them back, and then you see the action figure move. And because I loved Spider-Man so much at the time, meshed the two together, and that's where I got my Spider-Man Abridged Cut series. While creating this Abridged Cut series is when I got those figures. It was actually for those reasons that I got those figures. Ross Script Writing, how's it going? Welcome to the stream, and thank you so much for the follow. Thank you, really, really appreciate that. I got to be honest. I think this is this is my second follow during one of these shows here live. I really appreciate that, man. And then Snicks is talking about hating his controller. I still need to play Ni no Kuni. I got angry in a boss fight. I hate my controller. Well, I guess we gotta get a new controller. Hello, Ross Script Writing. I'm guessing by your name, you're also a big fan into film. Into script writing, I would see. So while I was creating the Abridged Cut series of those stop motion shorts over on my YouTube channel, obviously I was getting the action figures to create the stop motion series, because at the time I had a couple of Spider-Man figures. I only had like the wrestler Spider-Man and the zipline Spider-Man from Spider-Man 2, and then it was finally with 2007 that I got those, that I got not just the black suit Spider-Man but also the Harry Osborn New Goblin one, the Venom one, etc. And when I found out about how to, animate with stop motion by hitting record, stopping, or taking the photos, then after I was done reviewing figures, because I was out of figures to review from the Spider-Man line, and I still had Transformers to come out later that July, I was like, what do I posted these videos, and people were liking them. They were getting quite a few amount of views, and then that's finally when I decided, okay, I need something else to post, because people were saying, when's your next? I remember this was back in the golden age of YouTube in 2007, or around that the site was small enough that someone like me can just post a handful of YouTube videos of me talking about some figures that I would actually get one comment almost every video saying, when's your next video? And they would subscribe, and they would ask me, when's your next video? And I'm like, oh man, these people want another video. And I finally saw Spider-Man 3 in IMAX. I saw it kind of late because at the time I wasn't able to just freely go to the movie theater like I can right now. Well, not right now because they're closed, but during adulthood, I had to wait for certain rides. But at the same time, for some weird reason, I was super stubborn to want to watch Spider-Man 3 in IMAX and not in a regular theater, that I had to wait for a ride from my brother to go down a pass here in Southern California that's on the freeway, because my mom's scared to drive on the freeway. We had to wait for my brother to give us a ride to the IMAX theater to watch Spider-Man 3, and that didn't happen until like late July or early August-ish. And finally, when I saw the movie, I said to myself, okay, I'm going to make a review on the movie, and that was my very first movie review. And then, of course, over practice and over repetition, when I finally got to that Transformers review, and then other movies that came out in 2007, and then 2008 with The Dark Knight and Iron Man, I started to kind of get into a rhythm where I was like, yeah, this is how I talk about movies. And then it was finally when I started to watch, I started to kind of meld my opinions with that of the DVD extras that I was watching, with directors talking about how they approach something to film, that started to kind of mold my viewpoint on certain films. That now, obviously over the course of time changes everything. And just like when you play that certain movie that you used to love as a kid, and then you not because you're an adult now, because those rose-colored glasses got taken away, or quite vice versa, you get a movie that you thought was kind of weird when you were a kid, but now you're watching as an adult, you finally understand it. That started to take its own kind of metamorphosis over time, and ultimately that resulted into the viewpoint that I have now about being this hypercritical person watching film. But that's only because of just how passionate it is that I am about film, from a writing and directing standpoint. So when I see a good shot, and I see a good line, or I hear a good line of dialogue, or a nice little clever thing they did with a character to kind of give that person a redemptive arc or something like that, I always pointed out. And likewise, all the negative stuff I always point out, because sometimes it's either just really, really bad that needs to be commentated on, or even, in my opinion, even worse, something is bad because it had a missed opportunity to be something better, and for some reason they didn't take it. And that, to me, is the ones that hurt the most, because I'm especially when I start to watch a movie, or I'm watching a movie or watching a TV show, and I'm kind of redirecting a scene or remaking the scene in question in my brain as I'm watching it, and I'm going, shit, I don't think that's a good thing, because I should be invested in what I'm watching right now, and instead I'm invested in my own version of what I'm watching. So, to each their own. I'm currently writing one I plan on pitching to different places. Nice. A feature or a short film? Because right now I'm working on the treatment, because I got Act 1 down, and I have an episode of film student school later down the pipeline that's actually going to talk about where I'm at from a writing standpoint, to kind of give out my experiences as to what it is I used for motivation, where do I find the most motivation or the most ideas, where I can just go there and be like, okay, here's my think bubble. But more on that in a future episode. Actually, to be honest, it might either, let me open up my Word document here that has the list of my episodes, because I think it might be the next episode, if not the one after that. Episode 5. Okay, no. Okay, no, no, no. Yes, so it's the one after next. It's the one after next. Episode 7 is where I'll be talking about how I get inspiration and how do I structure things and how, what people have told me about structuring. So today is, like I said, all about just why it is that I'm a film critic the way I am, because something that I tell an awful lot of people, and I even put this in my Twitter when I live tweeted about being live right now on Twitch, is that I can either after taking that transformation from when I was a kid, when I was just starting to make YouTube videos talking about movies, that eventually turned into much more refined, much more polished reviews on my second channel on YouTube, and then eventually becoming live reviews here on Twitch, mainly for games and movies. Something on that, on my outside circle of, social kind of interaction, whether it be with friends or with family, mainly family, I would probably say, because friends don't have to live with me. But over the course of time, I knew something was changing when it came to my opinion and my overall outlook on film and how I critique a film and how I talk about that. When I started to notice that people, especially people who are, I can trace back to, my high school days. I thankfully still have a friend of mine who ever so often pops in on the chat here when I go live on Twitch, and ever so often I go see him for like parties and get-togethers and things like that. From high school, and I think once or twice he's noted how different I've looked at film or pop culture in general when it comes to like I said, video games, music, TV shows. And that's the thing, is that there's a good chance that the people closest to you are gonna notice this change, and because of it, I've adapted a phrase, a key phrase, where I'm either the best person to go see a movie with at the theater, and also the worst person to go to the movie theaters with, depending on where you land in that spectrum of my social circle. So what do I mean by that? Basically, after taking this change, after looking at film by microscopically breaking down certain scenes and then pointing out little subtle things that kind of go like this and in and of themselves and stuff like that, like I said, I just can't help because of how my passion kind of grew over the years, and with passion comes criticism, and eventually you got to be critical about the stuff you love. So what I mean by that phrase is basically I'm the best person to go to the movie theaters with, because if I'm super invested in something and super critical in my viewing experience and how I'm gonna feel about that viewing experience afterwards, then when I go see a movie at the movie theaters, I'm gonna be the quietest, because I have to listen, I have to watch, I have to make sure that I'm fully immersed, especially in the theater. I've already made a separate video on my YouTube channel about YouTube moviegoers and the culture it is, how the culture is right now with going to the movie theaters. Not now this second, I'm talking, within modern age. I'm not talking right now, because we can't go to the movie theaters, which definitely is hurting me because of the movie theater generally was, for a time, my sanctuary until millennials started to ruin it. At least the millennials in my area. But the reason why I say that I can be that great person to go to the movie theater is because I'm being super critical. I'm trying to make an awful lot of mental notes, especially during my days where I was making repeated or frequent YouTube videos reviewing these films. And because of that, I needed to pay attention and be super immersed in the experience, especially if I'm in the theater, because everything's dark, only the screen is being lit up. That's where I'm going to be suckered into. And because of that, I'm going to be quiet. I'm going to be still. I'm not going to be fidgeting. And if you start to notice if I'm either fidgeting just a tiny bit or if I'm starting to kind of turn to you and make these jokes, chances are that movie's not being executed very well. There's a good chance that that's the case. So that's why I say that I think the people who can probably enjoy my presence most at the movie theater to an extent would be the people that don't really know me very well. Because then they'll notice that when the movie is really kicking, they'll be invested just as well as I am. But with me, because I'm probably going to be getting home and doing a review. At the time I was doing reviews on YouTube. Now I will likely be doing reviews here on Twitch. I would want to get home and stream it. And that's because, I need that attention to detail, and I'm going to be quiet. So for them, for me, we're bouncing off each other in a sense that we can both sit down, be quiet, and just experience the movies for ourselves. That's awesome. Now, when it comes to my close, circle of acquaintances and people, and I would probably say my immediate family and my girlfriend are probably the two to have the biggest receiving end of this, is where I can maybe, just maybe, be the worst person to go to the movie theaters with. Because after a time, people in your immediate family or, significant others and such might be really comfortable with you. So comfortable that they feel like maybe they can kind of do anything. So I don't know if maybe you find yourself in this situation where your significant other or your family, they feel like they can be chill at the movie theater with you, but because you happen to be the creative in that group, you happen to be the one that's all about film and passionate about film, you want to make sure that you're paying attention. So when Aunt whoever puts her feet up on the chair right in front of you, or when your girlfriend starts to get restless leg syndrome, and because you do know them and you can talk to them, or you can at least make some kind of effort to fix the situation, you will take it. Especially when, like I said, that sugarcoating of criticism over the years has softened, then you can bet your ass I'm going to say something. And like I said, that's probably where I can probably be, I said probably too many times there, the worst person to go see the movie theaters with, because I'm going to make it known that you're disrupting the experience. I'm sorry, but I am going to be that guy. Furthermore, again, I'm not, this episode is not solely focused on the whole concept of movie theater etiquette, though there could be a future episode to disclose this. I'm just not going to go into the ramblings right now because I know that there's a YouTube video out there that you can easily just look up and watch on YouTube. How does this fare off into my criticism of film and my critique of film and how I review films is because, again, going back, I know it's going to sound like a broken record, but again, going back to that whole process of how I love film now and how I'm passionate about film now that I deconstructed from this side of the camera where we're watching it as a moviegoer to being on the other side of the camera where I'm where I can put myself in the shoes of either the actor during that stellar but also very emotionally raw performance, or that camera angle that needed hours upon hours to set up only for like 20 seconds of screen time. Christopher Nolan just put out a new trailer for Tenet today, and that made me think about Inception because of the trippiness and all that stuff. And I remember that Inception had that famous hallway fight scene where that scene, I believe, amounts to a minute and a half of screen time, and they had to build a whole rotating hallway just for that. But it's memorable. Look at that, 10 years later, and we're still thinking about it, right? So I'll call attention to that kind of stuff. And then when it comes to, differences of opinions, because obviously everyone's going to have a different opinion, but because of how passionate passionate critiquing we are of film, we're also going to have a very passionate and critiquing opinion, more so than your average person. Even if we're probably on the same wavelengths, we're gonna take, creatives, we're gonna take it a little far. We're gonna take it a little far because when it comes to making those great films, we recognize that original director, that producer, that writer, whoever it was, they needed to take it farther. It's the only reason why you probably remember the film. Christopher Nolan, someone probably told him that we could do this CGI, and he probably looked at him like, Nani? Get off my set. He probably didn't really do that, but, he wanted to go practical, and now look at that. We're still thinking about that scene 10 years later, as short as it may be. So, our opinions and how we critique, we're going to be looking at it from seemingly harsher, but definitely it's for the betterment of the film. And like I said, we have different wavelengths. There are certain films where we're going to be critiquing because of so many missed opportunities, and then there are going to be other films that we're going to look at because they were just so close to hitting that greatness that they could have, and they just missed it. And we're going to call upon it because we're hoping that maybe that director or that writer, whoever they are, on their future endeavors, their next film, they're going to take that criticism in stride, just like we want to have that evolution on the next film. So we're open to critique. If we're not able to take critique well, we have no business being in this industry. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. So we're gonna be harsher, but of course, like I said, a great critic knows when to be criticizing of something and when to not be an asshole about something or not be a jerk. And I'd say, like I said, I have a good radar as to how to balance those things out and a good form of criteria to, put people in their tiers to say, okay, this person's generally not caring about my opinion. He or she is closed-minded. Then I'm going to be harsh to the point where maybe I will be a little asshole-ish. Versus the person who you can tell every time they make a film, they're improving. You're like, you're almost there. So, I learned that about myself. I learned that definitely going to those first couple of classes, tying it back to film school in general. Going through those tier 1 classes, I had multitudes, not just in the fundamental classes like principles of production and visual design. I had a multitude of teachers from various of those tier 1 and even a few of the tier 2 classes where they would, again, sound just as much as a broken record as I do right now, saying you got to be, critical, because only through criticism are you going to be able to grow. Definitely don't just focus on the critique stuff. I mean, critical response doesn't just mean point out the bad stuff. It also says point out the good stuff. And, over time, that's something that I learned to also apply to my reviews. And if you watch some of the very last reviews that I did on my YouTube channel, every single one of them, I break down the different technical and subtle and more substantial parts of something that I watched, whether it be a TV show or a movie. And I always try to throw out a decent amount of balance for the good stuff and the bad stuff when it comes to airtime on the review. Now, whether or not there's more good things in a movie versus bad, that's of course all dependent on opinion. Whichever the film may be, whichever the TV show may be, that's all subjective. I can't really talk about that. I can just say that that was my process of transforming my viewpoint because of how my passion and love for film just escalated, along with just learning what was making what is consensually from various bodies, what makes a good film, what makes a good TV show, what makes a bad film, what makes a bad TV show, and then somewhere in that blender mix throwing in my own opinions, which is where I love certain films. I love certain films ironically, and then I've generally just, don't care for certain films, or I think they're okay. I would probably say that maybe because of how I want this to be a profession of mine, lends to the occasional film or TV where even the people, like I said, that I hold very near and dear to me, like certain family, loved ones, my girlfriend, they're gonna like that one movie that I'm gonna look at and go, it was okay. And they're gonna look at me like I'm crazy. But thankfully, the people who generally want you to succeed in the profession will be like, oh, it's because he wants to be a director. It's fine. As long as they're not patronizing or condescending, that, it's good. Keep those people around. I found out that SpongeBob Battle for Bikini Bottom Rehydrated is $30. Yeah, okay, I saw that too. Yeah, it's $30. And then the fun edition is literally 10 times more expensive than that. It's $300. That's the one that I think I looked up the description of that fun edition. It literally comes packed with knickknacks. It's like some socks and then this, I don't know. Yeah, I was like, guys, what are you doing? Do you have your Spider-Man 3 figures? I do. They're in a drawer. They're not lost. I think they're in the top drawer in my other room, but I think I can locate them. I just haven't really pushed myself to do so, but they're definitely there. So real quick, let me just refer back to my little itinerary here for this episode, because I gotta be honest, that was I know I always say this recently with almost every episode, and it turns out to be the opposite. But I think that's it, really. Hold on, like I said, I might be wrong unless I'm missing something, but I think I was able to kind of go in and out between the topics just easily when referring to film criticism and what shaped that for me, and hoping that somewhere in there you were able to find certain familiar bits and some inspiration to be like, hey, it's okay to be critical, and you're not alone when it comes to desiring to be part of that group that can easily just watch movies without being super critical and just be like, yeah, I liked it. But, you know, if you love this industry enough, then you're going to have your little moments where you wish that, but then almost just as quickly you're going to go back and be like, well, it's part of me. It's part of me. This critical side is just part of me now. There's no fighting it. And it's also very interesting, it keeps things kind of interesting because at the same time, it's going to save your skin when it comes to your education, when it comes to your job, because, how many times as a creative have you been either in a classroom or in a meeting or something like that, and someone gets asked what they thought about something, and they just go, oh yeah, I liked it. And then something just deep inside you goes, okay, but what did you like about it? You wish you could just say that. And then when they get to you, and you can generally reach down for a very introspective look at whatever it is that you are critiquing or talking about, it could open up avenues, whether it be for a job. I mean, I gotta be honest, my critical nature, that's kind of how I talked about certain facets of the job position that I was applying for which I'm hired right now. And then when it came to getting into film school and doing the application process and, kind of doing the orientation of where I sit at and teachers liking me, most teachers liking me, really. And when I say most, I'm talking 85 to 90%. And, yeah, so that, it could be a social killer in the sense that, like I said, now we're in a time where things are a bit more on the sensitive side, a bit more on the monitored side. That's very, very different than it was, say, in the 1960s, 70s, 80s. So, good chunk of it for the better, because there's just some things that just can't work. But at the same time, I can personally tell you right now that when it comes to opinion, you cannot take that away from us, whoever you are. I really do mean it when I say whoever you are. Like, I'm not directing at anyone specifically. Opinion needs to be preserved. And that's probably another reason for why I also pushed it a little extra. I turned those knobs over to 11, so because they normally go over to 10, but these will go to 11. Spinal Tap reference. I always push it to that 11 because I know that somehow, some way, somewhere out there is trying to take down the whole concept of opinion. And for me, that's one of the things that I love about life the most, is having a sense of opinion, having this thing that is different from anybody else. And that needs to be preserved. So like I said, it's also definitely like a valuable tool. It can help you grow on social platforms, YouTube. Like I said, I talked about, how I made it into YouTube videos and how that gained my following over on YouTube, and now I'm trying to use it to gain a bigger following here on Twitch, with Twitch streams, with the Film Student School, with other things that I have kind of cooking that I thought to myself, okay, this could be kind of cool. Maybe I'll start doing this weekly. And then, of course, when it comes to my overall commentary, whenever I do stream games, because the way I'm critical about film, I'm also very critical for video games. Now, granted, that's not, even though I'm very passionate about games, it's not. Ever so often, I've kind of teased the idea of wanting to be a video game developer, but then I watch all these documentaries on YouTube of what it's like to develop a game, and I'm like, on second thought, I'm not saying it's not a bad job. It looks like it could be a great job if that's where your love lies, but I'm good. And who knows, on the other side of that looking glass, they're probably looking at our jobs as filmmakers and going, nah, I prefer the game development because I could just stay here. To each their own. And again, that is what is beautiful about critical opinions, critical reception, and having that individualistic look that makes us all special enough to want to pursue this kind of career, and how, like I said, it could also be applied to other parts of your life, whether it be socially, because at that point, socially, you can then weed out the people who are going to influence you versus the people who are not and who are not going to help you grow. When it comes to getting you a job, like I said, I used it when applying for various jobs, and for the one that I'm employed with right now, that's what I used in my job interview. And then, of course, with YouTube, with Twitch, with games, with things, and of course, ultimately, hopefully, in my film career, when I've had, I know that I must be doing something right when I've had teachers come back to me and be like, that was a good critique, definitely hold on to that. And that's what I'm telling you guys now. If you're watching this on repeat on Twitch or over on YouTube, just know that being critical is okay. Just don't take it too far. Take it just far enough to push the limit, but never break it. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and sign off a little early today, because I feel like this was just a really nice, compact package that I don't feel the need to drag on a little too long. I'm just going to say here, Snick Sabers, yeah, in the stream I got harassed by another viewer for not liking Pokemon Sun and Moon, so I reported him and never heard of him again. Yeah, like I said, you can be critical, but once you get into harassing territory, bullying territory, things like that, that's when certain facets of today's society can kick in and be like, okay, this does need some regulation, so that's good. Others, when it comes to censoring opinions, like I said, that's where it's like, okay, no, you stop doing that. But it was my opinion. To me, I thought it was bad. That's the thing. I heard a lot of people say that I didn't like Sun and Moon. Yeah, for not liking Sun and Moon. That's weird. It's just weird because of just how much of a streak they were having at the time with Pokemon. And then finally, Sun was the one that I heard a lot of people who genuinely love Pokemon saying, nah, Sun, like, this ain't it. I guess eventually I'll find out. That's another thing, too, actually. You know what? Before you even think about tearing someone's opinion down, develop one your own. The best weapon against another opinion is your opinion. And when I say that, I don't mean not a best weapon against that other opinion to destroy it. I mean in a way to kind of shield yourself from being just, like a shell, so to speak, of someone that's just echoing words, saying, oh no, that sucks. Oh, that was cool. That was sucks. And nothing of actual substance when it comes to opinion. And hey, the thing that can help you build an opinion is to play that game, is to watch that movie, is to watch that TV show, to read that comic, to read that novel, etc., etc. Experience. Okay? Which I will find out myself when I finally get to playing Pokemon Sun. And maybe, just maybe, I'll figure out why exactly a lot of people don't like those two games, especially diehard Pokemon fans. So like I said, even though it started kind of late, we're going to be calling it a little early here. This is generally around the time that I kind of wrap up anyway, during the live stream of this 5th episode of Film Student School. Snick Sabers, thank you so much for tuning in. And then, of course, our newest follower, Ross Script Writing, thank you so much for dropping on by, chatting, and thank you for the follow. Make sure you have notifications turned on. And if you're watching this either as a repeat here on Twitch through a broadcast highlight, or if you're watching it over on YouTube, go ahead and follow Ross. I missed his name now because of the chat here. Ross Script Writing's exemplary path by tuning into the Twitch channel, checking out the past broadcasts, checking out the past highlights of Film Student School, as well as various other streams that I do, which normally center around gaming, but also I like to kind of take one time out of the week to talk a little bit about film school every Thursday at 7:30. Hopefully, unless I have to eat or do something, which could be pushing it a little bit like I did tonight. But nevertheless, I'll be here unless by some chance I have to cancel or anything like that. And you can turn on those notifications when you do hit the follow button. That way you never miss a single stream. However, if you guys want to be notified of when and where I might have to reschedule a stream, or if you guys just want to follow my brain for even more in-depth, written but really well-paced critiques on games, movies, and TV shows, you can follow me on Twitter, twitter.com/darkspiderdavid or at darkspiderdavid, all one word, no caps. Link is being put out there here in the chat by good old mod Sneak Sabers. No credit card information this time, especially since I'm still waiting on my new credit card because of reasons. And over on that Twitter, like I said, I'll be posting notifications when I go live on Twitch, as well as just various opinions of things that I'm currently playing, watching, and or experiencing. Also, check out the instagram.com/darkspiderdavid. Link is also either in the chat, or if you're watching this on YouTube or on Twitch as a playback, you can check out the bio page, the about page, the info page, and all links are going to be there for my social media platforms. Otherwise, that about does it, guys, for this week's Film Student School. Take care. Hope you guys all have a great rest of your evening, and I'll see you on the next one. Peace.